On today's episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast, we're going to be talking about romantic expectations. And we are always encouraging couples to over-communicate in all areas of their marriage. But one of the really important places where you really need to over-communicate is when it comes to romance. And so today, we're going to actually have a real live up-to-the-minute personal conversation about our romantic expectations with each other, and we're going to let you join in on that conversation. So stay tuned. Hello, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant. So glad that you are joining us today.
Maybe we could do like when you say, this is Rusty, and I could say, Heather.
Wah, wah, wah.
I never get to say my own name.
Hey, you can introduce us anytime.
You do great.
Hey, maybe this is some unmet expectations. Maybe your expectation is that you get a chance to be the leader.
Let me tell you about this expectation of today's podcast. I'm anxious. Like, this is what he told me, guys. He said, we're going to have a real life conversation, real life, both conversation about romance and expectations. And I was like, okay, give me more details. He said, no, we're just going to do it live on our podcast. So usually I kind of have an idea of where we're going, but I have no idea where we're going today.
Well, I'm always excited about our podcast, but I think get more excited about these because you do better when you're the free spirit, the fly by the seat of your pants. I'm the one that needs some structure, and so I don't know. I feel like you're just better whenever
I perform better.
You perform
with
better,
no boundaries,
pretty much,
and no guidance.
It's kind of like we were talking about doing. We need to do a video for something, and you were like, "Hey, let's do this, and you're so," and then you were like, but that's the big picture. Now you look at the trees.
That's right. I need you to do the details.
Oh gosh. But see, it's hard. It's actually easier for me to come up with the idea and the trees as opposed to...
the idea is the trees.
No.
You think
but what I'm saying is, I don't even know what that. I don't even know what that means. You said it.
Well, it comes from that saying about the forest. Like, I see the big picture, the forest, and you see the trees, like the details.
I understand.
So I'm anxious about what details are going to look like with romantic expectations.
Well, we're about to find out the details. So here's kind of where this is coming from. So you can listen to this at any time, but Valentine's is coming up. So for us, we always record on a Sunday. We produce our podcast or publish it on Monday. So most of you, because a lot of you listen to it on the day that it comes out, and so that would be 2 days from Valentine's. And so...
Before Valentine's.
2 days before Valentine's.
Yep.
What'd I say?
I don't know. I just didn't hear it right, probably.
Okay.
It's 2 days. You're listening to this 2 days before Valentine's, if you're listening to it live.
But it doesn't matter because this is not going to be really specific to Valentine's. This is just about romance. And, we don't talk a ton about romance on here. We do from time to time, but, our story is sort of the attraction. But hey, every marriage needs romance. And so today what we're going to talk about is we're just going to talk about expectations because in your marriage, you have expectations when it comes to romance and your spouse has expectations when it comes to romance. And if you don't communicate those expectations, then there can be some really difficult circumstances or something like that.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. So the first thing, we talk to couples all the time, and we tell them that they have to over-communicate about everything. And romance is no different. If you have expectations, you need to communicate those to your spouse. And if you don't, you really can't get your feelings hurt
or fault your
spouse if they don't meet those expectations.
Right.
And so there's a couple of things we're going to get into. We haven't had a discussion about our romantic expectations for Valentine's Day necessarily. And so we're going to kind of practice what we preach today. And we're going to talk a little bit just about what our expectations are. I want to know what your expectations are for Valentine's Day and really just romance in general.
Like all Valentine's Day or specifically this one?
Well, what?
Like, are you talking about specifically on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Or like in general,
No.
Valentine's
We're going
Day
to talk
look
specifically
like. Okay.
because what we're trying to do here is we're welcoming people into our real world right now.
Okay.
And Valentine's Day is coming up. And so we're going to talk about what our expectations are for Valentine's Day, but that's going to be the overall picture of kind of what romance really means to each one of us. Because here's the thing. Valentine's Day, in my opinion, should just enhance and even jumpstart some things. It doesn't need to be the exception. It needs to be what starts the norm for most marriages. Because everybody now I know it's a day to do things a little more elaborately and making sure it's very intentional and all that. But really we should be romantic all the time. In some ways, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. So here's my first question though, because some people out there are thinking, well, if I tell my spouse what I want and what I expect, then it's really not special.
Yeah, we actually hear that
Oh
a
my
lot.
gosh, a lot. So what's your
Like,
answer?
why-
Yeah.
yeah.
What's your answer to that?
Well, I think the frustrating part is I understand where that is coming from. Like nobody wants to have to tell your spouse every single thing to do to make you feel special. Every time. But I also feel like there is a time where you just put your expectations out there and then the spouse gets to run with that. Like you shouldn't have to say every time you get dressed up, I would really like it if you told me that I looked nice. You say that once.
That's right.
Or twice. And then the spouse, their responsibility is to run with that and be like, you know what? When my spouse makes a special effort to look nice or is dressed up for a special occasion, I need to remember to tell them how handsome they look or how beautiful they look or whatever. So I think I have no problem with the initial expressing how it makes you feel, how it makes you feel valued, what you expect of somebody. But then it's the other person's job to be like, okay, they told me that's important to them, so I'm going to remember that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I really think that some of this has to do with people's personalities too. And if you're one of those people, if you're listening to this and you're one of those people that gets your feelings hurt because you have these expectations that aren't getting met, then you definitely need to over communicate. And here's the other thing. I would rather people twist this around to where if you tell your spouse something or hint at your spouse about something and they do it, then instead of going, oh, they're just doing it because I said something. Well, why don't you just get excited that your spouse actually listened?
Yeah.
And did something that you said was going to make you happy. Then at that point, it's like, well, they did it because you wanted them to.
Or even if it doesn't go exactly how you had in your mind, be thankful that you have a spouse that was willing to try to do something.
Absolutely.
And try, to make something fun. And I will tell you, for me, and this is, I'm just admitting this is just me. So this may not be every woman in the world. But I also my expectations can change on what season that I'm in and what is going on around me and what's happening in my world during that time. Like, I don't think that I would ever be able to say, hey, if you want to make me happy on Valentine's Day, you know, a month before, make a reservation at my favorite restaurant, do this, have flowers, blah, 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 blah. I don't think I could say that blanket for every Valentine's Day.
Right.
I just don't.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with expressing to you, hey, you know, this week has been crappy. You know, I mean, we just had a really, really hard weekend. And if, you know, and that could go two ways. Either one, I want to go do something really nice and, you know, that's the expectation. Or I may just want to stay at home and watch a movie and, you know, do something here.
Right.
So that's why I think it's so important to make sure that you're communicating with your spouse on that, because it can change. And so if you're a man listening to this and you're like, oh, I want to, you know, do something special for my spouse, it's okay to say, hey, what would make you happy that we could do? And if your spouse says, hey, I just want you to plan it, then that's fine.
We didn't even talk about this, and you're just nailing it. See, this is what's so great about this, because I have notes. Like, I have notes, and you just hit like two or three of the
all
top.
over them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sorry,
but you are nailing some of the points, because first of all, yes, our expectations for romance change. They have changed from the day we were married. And they've changed through 27 years of marriage. And you're exactly right. They change based on the season. And I would even be willing to say, look, again, this is not everybody. And I'm not knocking this on women in general. But I'm going to be really serious when I say some women, their expectation, all right, Valentine's falls on Wednesday, their expectation on Tuesday might be different from what it is on Wednesday. And I mean, I'm being a little bit funny, but I'm also being really serious. And we as men have to understand that. And it's hard, but I think that you made a great point, because, you know, based on things that have happened, you know, in the days surrounding, there's a need for some flexibility. Now, there's some people out there that it's like, nope, you better bring me chocolates and I better have flowers delivered to me. And like, that's an expectation every single time. And if that's the case, excuse me, then they need to know that. And if you're one of those that's like, I don't want to have to tell them, you know, I would rather just be a surprise, then I think that expectation needs to be shared as well. And if that's a big deal to you, and you go to your spouse and you say, I'm not going to tell you what to do, I want you to surprise me, I want you to just make it special.
You better be happy with whatever they do.
Exactly.
Because there is nothing more heartbreaking than to say, hey, I just want you to plan something special for me. It doesn't, I mean, you just do you. I want to be surprised. And then your spouse goes to the trouble of having a restaurant or flowers or all of these things. And you be like, I really just kind of wanted to go for a walk and get coffee. Okay. Then say that.
Yep. Oh, see, this is why I was so excited about doing this episode, because I mean, this is real life to people. And
and I think that this is one of the things that we learned the hard way, because before our marriage crisis 12 years ago, we did not communicate at all.
Right.
And I was constantly putting expectations on you that could never be met. And that's the definition of disappointment. unmet expectations. And so if you put the expectations out there and you communicate with your spouse, then you aren't disappointed because you've communicated. And ladies and men, whoever has listened to this, get over yourself if you're thinking, well, I shouldn't have to tell him to tell me that I'm pretty. Or I shouldn't have
so much.
Yes. Or I shouldn't have to tell him that I want to have sex tonight. Or I shouldn't have to tell him. If you're a woman, I need you to hear me. They're men. They don't get it, and they cannot read our minds. And so you have to be able to communicate with them and tell them the things that you want. And they're not going to know it unless you tell them.
Yes. And if you don't tell them, please don't get mad at them when they don't meet the expectations.
Yeah.
And again, you said it at the beginning where there are some elements to this where you kind of, I like for you to tell me that I look pretty whenever I get dressed up. No, I'm just saying, like a woman in general, or a man. A man may be like, "Hey, I like for you to tell me that I look good and I'm handsome." Whenever I dress up, like that shouldn't be something that you have to say over and over. But there may be a season where you have to give a reminder because people get comfortable.
Yeah, and okay, this is a silly example, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I may have mentioned something like this before on a podcast, but my boys, not you, but my boys. My almost 22-year-old and my 17-year-old, they compliment me 90% of the time when I get my nails done. They do that because several times after getting my nails done, I would be like, "Do you like my nails? Do you think they're pretty? Do you like the color?" And I would say, they would go, "Ooh, I love them." And I'd be like, "Thanks." And they could see how that made me feel. Even though I asked them, "Do you think they're pretty? Do you like them? Do you like the color?" All of that. Them saying, "Yeah, they're pretty, Mom." And then I would get giddy and be like, "Oh, thanks." And they saw that joy that it brought me. After several times, they're like, "Hey, if I compliment Mom on her new nails, she's going to love that." And so 90% of the time when I get my nails done, the three of y'all say something. Even Luke, who's like way far away, we were on FaceTime the other day and I did something. He said, "Is that a heart on your fingernail?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Those are pretty." And I was like, "Oh," because they know that makes me feel seen when they notice things like that. But they didn't do that on their own. Can I use the word trained, or is that weird?
You trained them well.
I trained them well. And if their future wives get their nails done, they will
it's
notice.
Scriptural. Train up a child in the way he should go.
But I showed them that it was important to me. And they picked up on the fact that it was important to me. And they continue to do that because it makes me happy.
Yeah. And yesterday, our youngest son said something to his cousin about her nails, and his girlfriend was standing right there, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you noticed her nails?" And we were like, "Yeah, that's just, we trained them."
That's right.
You trained them. Okay, so we kind of talked. That was the forest. Now we got to look at trees a little bit, but I love it. I think that people need to hear that, and I hope that it hits home with a lot of people. But we're going to practice what we preach, like we said, and we're going to have a conversation because Valentine's Day is, for us right now, while we're talking, it's literally in 3 days. And so we're going to have just a brief conversation about what our expectations are for that day. Because, like Heather said, it's a different season. Things may be a little bit different on this Valentine's Day. And so we're going to make sure that our expectations are met and that we know what each other are thinking. All right, so for you, just think about that day that's coming up and how much attention, how important is a lot of attention to the fact that it's Valentine's Day. How important is that to you coming up?
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and start, and I'm going to do a very dramatic pause right here. just in case you have to come back and delete all of this.
Hold on. I was like, what are you doing?
Just in case you're like, yeah, that's not what I wanted, and we have to go back. And that's fine. That's fine. But okay, I didn't know we were going to talk specifically about this. Okay, we went shopping this weekend because Luke was home. Our oldest was home because he came home to watch a soccer game of our youngest, and he needed some new shorts and some new shirts and things like that. So he's been struggling with shorts, and I said, would you just try a pair of Lululemon shorts? Well, Rusty hates Lululemon shorts. He thinks they're stupid to spend that much money on shorts, but I was like, I promise you will love these shorts.
But hey, if anybody from Lululemon is listening right now, we'll take your sponsorship.
So anyway, we go to Lululemon, just the three of us, or the four of us, because the cousin was here, and he tried on a pair of Lululemon shorts. Well, while we were in there, I was like, oh, I have one pair of hand-me-down Lululemon leggings, and I love them. And I was like, I really want a pair of leggings. And Rusty said, Valentine's Day? I said, absolutely. So I got me a pair of leggings and a tank top, and I was like, here you go. All you have to do, it's a cute little Lululemon bag. All you have to do is add some tissue paper, and it'll be done. Okay? For me, that is perfectly fine. I know I am getting something that I am super excited about. Now, there are women listening going, that's a horrible idea, because they want it to be a surprise. But if you are in that camp of wanting it to be a surprise, then you can maybe give a little guidance. Don't say, I want you to surprise me and get chocolate and say, I really wanted a necklace. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's okay to say maybe some jewelry, maybe get a new necklace. I need, and give some ideas. But for me, I am 100% happy waking up on Valentine's Day and having that gift bag that I know what's in there, because I am super pumped about what's in there. Mm-hmm. And there's no disappointment in that. Mm-hmm. None. Because you are willing to get that for me, because you know it's going to bring me joy.
Perfect. So the reason...
That's not the part I thought you would want to delete. But anyway, continue.
The reason why we're having this conversation live and in real time for us, like none of this is staged, is because there have also been seasons of our life where you have picked out something for a birthday present or even Valentine's or Christmas or whatever. And it's been like, hey, why don't you give me this for that upcoming? But then there's still an expectation of something, maybe not a gift, but like you still better,
just a little happy.
You better do this, or you better, it needs to be. And so I need to have this conversation because of, we bought this. I don't even know how much money it was, but I'm assuming it was a lot of money. And you said, that's great. That's what I want. But now where I need to come back and follow up is, how much more attention do I need to pay it? How much do I need to pay attention to the fact that it's Valentine's Day?
Right.
Even though I've already gotten you something.
That's right. Okay. So real talk. I grew up with my daddy getting me a Valentine's gift every single year. Sometimes it's chocolate, sometimes what. But since I've been married, he has given me a gift card to get my nails done every single Valentine. It's an expectation. If he didn't get that for me, I would be like, oh no, what's wrong? I would think something was wrong. And so that's kind of what I grew up with. And so it doesn't bother me to be like, this is just our little tradition, of getting... It doesn't have to be big and extravagant and a surprise. So that's my heart, okay? Now, it is Valentine's Day, and there are a lot of people who hate Valentine's Day. Like, they're like, it's stupid. Why do we put so much effort?
So commercial.
And that's right, and that's fine. If that's what your thoughts on it, it's fine. Now, I love Valentine's Day because I feel like, because of how I was raised, like I never got my dad a gift. It was a time that he gave me, my sister, and my mom a gift. And he expected nothing in return.
Right.
But that's my view of Valentine's Day. And I think when we first got married, it was like, do I get something for you? Do you know, and so it's that kind of, if you're newly married, that's a conversation y'all need to have.
Absolutely.
You know, like, do you want me to get you something even though you're the guy? You know, your expectation, I can tell him what your expectation is. Like if I bought a new piece of lingerie or brought out a pair of lingerie that I hadn't worn in a while, that would be your Valentine's Day. Like whatever, just let's have sex. And here's the gift. And I know that. And I will make that happen because I know that. But I also think that there's so much, for what you're asking me is how much attention needs to be to it. I don't think much because I know that you have me a gift and it's a nice gift and I'm super excited about that. I know my dad will have my that. And just gosh, I love you and I'm thankful for you today is super fun. Now, here's the part that I'm nervous about. Because of the season that we're in, we had a hard weekend because of a soccer game that was supposed to be won and it wasn't. And our 17-year-old is in a sad place because of that. His girlfriend also just left to go back to college. So we have a very down 17-year-old at home that if you said to me, hey, the two of us are going out to dinner Wednesday night and leaving him at home, my heart would hurt. I wouldn't want to leave him.
Right.
Now, judge me as you may. Like, I know that our marriage is important, but it would hurt my heart if we left him behind and went out to eat. So I'm like, hey, let's do something fun. Let's go, the three of us, go out to dinner. Just tell him how much we love him and care for him because this time next year, he's going to be at college. And from this Valentine's on, our Valentine's Day is going to look different. So let's take advantage of this one where we have him at home and he's kind of down. So let's do something with him. Then I started thinking, hey, I can get out of school, leave right at dismissal. Me and you could surprise him, drive him to Birmingham and take his girlfriend out to dinner. Like, how fun would that be? He would die. She would die. And so I'm thinking, like, how can we make that fun for them? Because that's where my heart is right now. My heart is super, super tender this Valentine's Day for my kid. And I'm super emotional about the fact that from now on, our kids are both going to be gone on Valentine's Day.
Yep.
That was a whole lot of information.
No, it's perfect, though, because if I had to sit down, like if you said, hey, surprise me and tell me, I would have said exactly what you said. I did not think about driving 3.5 hours.
I was just to say, wait,
but
you thought of
the
that?
other part, yes, I did know that it is a hard season for him, and I knew that your heart would be there. And so I already knew I would incorporate, if you didn't tell me, I would incorporate him into what was going on. But the reason why it's so important for you to say that is because it would not, like, I wouldn't just be completely caught off guard and surprised if you also said, I mean, I would be surprised because I know you better. But if you said, hey, he's fine. He'll probably go to church that night and I want you to get reservations at my favorite restaurant. Like, that would surprise me a little bit because I don't think that that's the season that you're in. But again, it kind of wouldn't. And so if that was the case, I would need you to tell me that.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because this thing could have gone a completely different way. And
That's
so
right.
it's really important that we're having this discussion.
Yep.
Also, I mean, as far as flowers, chocolate, cards, like, I know that you don't care about that, but if that's an expectation for you for this Valentine's, like, I would need to know that. I mean, I cannot stand to spend money on cards, and I'm okay with flowers. There's sometimes that you like flowers. And, chocolate. I mean, I pick you up chocolate all the time from
Milk
the
Duds.
Milk Duds. You love them. And I pick them up almost every time I go to the grocery store. But if that's something that's an expectation, I would need to know
That's right.
that for sure.
That's right.
Okay, we are like out of time for what we normally do. But here's the other thing. We were talking about kids, and there's a lot of you that are like, we can't even be romantic because we have kids. I want y'all to hear us. We're discussing how we can actually incorporate kids into our Valentine's Day, and our kids are 22 and 17. And so you can complain and make excuses all you want about little children, but we've had little children too, and now we have grown children, and we still have to navigate it. And we will navigate it in a way to where it's creative. Yep. We will figure it out. And like, I know, you know what I need on that day to feel loved, and you'll figure it out and you'll make it happen.
I know we're out of time, but I have to tell this one last thing. When you were talking about children, I was like, yep. One of my favorite memories of a Valentine's Day is you had our boys be our waiters. I don't even remember. That's how unimportant that part was. I don't remember if you cooked or if you had it catered and put on plates. But our boys brought us our meal, brought us our drinks, all of that. And they were part of the Valentine's Day celebration that you prepared for me. And that was super fun. We didn't have to have a babysitter. Now they weren't 3 and 8.
Right.
I mean, you know, they weren't teenagers, but they were a little bit older. And that's just a creative way to.
But I know that about you. And there are some people that are like, get me the heck away from my kids, whatever you have to do. Right. But that has to be shared with your spouse. And then, look, I mean, the other part, like, I know there's people out there that are probably thinking, oh, it's the woman's day. And if the woman doesn't want to be physically intimate, you know, that's a discussion, though, that needs to be had, too. Because, look, I completely agree. It is I don't want anything. Like, don't give me a gift, you know, don't give me a card. None of that's important to me. It is the woman's day. And I hope that I hope that my kids see that too. But it's also, I mean, that is for me, for you to, I mean, even flirt with me during the day, and just, you know, like you already said, you know, if you put on something that, like, that's just different. It's just different because, look, I mean, I'll just say it right here. We have a great sex life. But if it's something that's just, it's your way of saying, hey, this can be a little fun and different than what it normally is. Right. And that's great. Like, that just boosts my ego and makes everything better. But not everybody's like that.
That's right.
So if they're not, talk about it.
Yep, that's right. In closing, if you know my youngest son or his girlfriend, please don't say anything. Just in case we can make something like that work.
We may not, but just...
That's right.
Right.
Because that would be even worse if they said, ooh, I heard that, and then we didn't do it. So don't mention anything.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the message that got across here, I know we've run out of time, so maybe we will continue our conversation off mic, but it's just so important for our listeners to learn how to communicate. And I hope that, I mean, all of this, none of this was planned. We just had a real conversation, just like what we encourage other couples to do. Have this conversation, and don't let a Valentine's Day go by where you're going to get all mad and because of unmet expectations. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
So, and also, let me put this in. Don't make Valentine's Day be the exception. Like, it's just the starting. It's just a way to enhance and rekindle and spark, and then continue doing those things all throughout the year. All right. I'm off my soapbox. I love this episode. I think it was great.
Let's see if they do.
You know what? It strengthened our marriage.
That's right.
That's important. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see y'all next week.